G'day everybody, welcome to 4-Wheel Drive Monthly's Ute of the Year test for 2007. Now we've already done the preliminaries, we've got the 6 toughest dual cab turbo diesels on the market. We've got a team of 8 drivers, crosses every sort of experience you can get. This is going to be the best Ute of the Year we've ever done, in fact anybody's ever done. But I don't know where we're going yet. What do you reckon, Glenn? What's the course?
We thought the best way to test these 6 utes, mate, was to take them from Adelaide to Alice Springs via the toughest tracks we could possibly find. Rocks, corrugations, hopefully some good river crossings and a bit of mud if it's raining, some sand. What else do you want, mate?
Well, mate, there's been a cyclone through here just recently, so I'm looking forward to a bit of fun. There's not a vineyard in sight. Folks, this is going to be the toughest Ute of the Year anyone's ever done. Come along, this will be great. Welcome to Roothy's Ruthless Tales podcast. Go on, grab a slice of fair dinkum, Australia. Get your dose of Roothy and put a smile on your dial. Righto, here we go. John J.J. Jamieson, one of Australia's leading diesel experts, Nick Manell from Manell Motors, well-known off-road competitor and vehicle setup expert, and Graham Grimbo Sampson, 4-wheel drive competitor, enthusiast, and he's here as our reader representative too. Driving the ARB trucks, we've got Mark Lowmount Lowry, Head of Product Development at ARB HQ, and Matt Frost, Marketing Manager and long-distance touring expert.
For the 2007 Ute of the Year comparison, we've purposely chosen all diesel engines. These little turbo diesels can be extremely economical, yet still perform very, very well if driven correctly. The best ways to maximise fuel economy are to be gentle on the throttle. Don't rev the engine too much through the gears. Rev it to about 2,500–3,000 RPM and change gear. And predict what's going on up ahead of you. If you see a hill approaching, build up momentum before you get to the bottom of the hill. Don't arrive at the bottom of the hill and put your boot into it, because you'll pretty much just be pouring diesel out the exhaust pipe. Hopefully by remembering these 3 little tips, you'll be able to keep your money in your wallet rather than handing it all over to the guy at the service station.
Gee, Gleno, is that tanker along to keep us going? What's it got in it, diesel or beer?
After that break, going right now.
Our first port of call is the Wadlata Outback Interpretive Centre in Port Augusta. Apart from being a great place to get out and stretch the legs, here you'll discover the incredible diversity and history of the Flinders Ranges and the South Australian outback. It's more than just a visitor centre, with interactive displays and loads of information on the region's origins, Aboriginal dreaming, mining, European settlement and more. Being the gateway to the Flinders Ranges, it gives you a taste of what lies on the road ahead and is a must visit for anyone driving through the area. Look at that, a pedal radio. I spent the first 10 years of my life avoiding one of those things as much as possible.
When we play 2 or more melodies at the same time.
Funny to see one in a museum. From Port Augusta, it's back on the road to Willow Springs and the spectacular Flinders Ranges. We must be getting close to the dirt now. The hills are starting to kick up and the country's changing. At Willow Springs, we're staying in the old shearers' quarters for a couple of nights so we can be close to Skytrek. Years ago, I did a stint as a shearers' cook, but it's a whole lot easier having Desley from Mangali Tours along to look after the catering. Oh, I love camping with Desley.
What about Desley? Out of the kitchen.
Too good. Look at that, too good, eh? This is bush camping. Next morning we were into it from sunup, checking the utes out closely, discussing their new age diesel technology and looking forward to a chance to put these babies through their paces on Skytrek. As always, the change in terrain means changing the tyre pressures. Nick's running them at 24 psi on the Holden's rear.
psi, we want 24 in these.
All the test utes were fitted with new Cooper ST tyres to level the playing field, and Terry Smith had given us a schedule of known pressures to suit these vehicles in different conditions. Tyre pressure is as important scrabbling around the loose rocky tracks of Skytrek as it is punching through the sandhills at Fraser. Traction and pressure, they're always directly connected. Guys, the windmill and tank over there on the right, they usually pull water around here from a depth of, it's not that deep really, about 20 metres I think, you know, probably 10 to 20 metres. I remember someone told me there's a bore on this place that's about 50 odd metres, but usually it's not too deep, they pull it to the surface. When I was a lad, in those days before four-wheel drives were invented, just about, all the mustering was done on horseback, and horses obviously have got a real advantage in this sort of terrain because they can think out where they're going to go all on their own and miss a lot of these rocks. The old horse, you know, jackaroo on horseback thing was a real Flinders Ranges constant all the way through those years, and you can see why, because it's just perfect country for horses. All the stations up here used to keep pretty large horse fleets, I guess you'd call them. I remember we had an old stallion called Whiskey, and the old man used to name every foal that Whiskey chucked had something to do with booze. I remember my favourite used to be one called Hangover. I didn't know what a hangover was then.
Look at the dust. You can see it hasn't rained here for a while, although there were floods coming through the country just north of here a couple of weeks ago. See that? The trader just bounced up with a bit of momentum. This terrain really shows up minor differences in these utes. And they could all use some more ground clearance and protective gear for starters. Whoa, there's nothing like enjoying yourself with somebody else's truck, is there? Skytrek's got some pretty hectic climbs that test these standard trucks out well. It's hot, dry and hard out here, real outback conditions.
that four-wheel drive, guys.
Wow.
Absolutely. Top of the world.
Look at the view from the top of Mount Carnarvon. Absolutely awesome. Only the special few ever get to see things like this because only us four-wheel drives can get here in the first place. Beauty keeps out the riffraff. As the day grows longer, there's plenty of locals out for a stroll too. As beautiful as they are, you'd give a six-pack to have a bull bar about now.
Someone say the beer's cold.
How come you put in the bloody strap like this?
Where's the swag gone?
The what? What's that, mate? Have you lost your swag? Did you have your swag in here?
That's what was in there.
No, it was in the back of...
It was in there early when I was driving.
Was it in this?
Surely we would have seen it.
No, we would have seen it. Yours is the one in the big bag.
Who tied it in?
I didn't tie it. It was in the...
No, it was in there early when I was driving it.
I don't know, mate. Honestly, last time I saw it was in here.
It was in there last time.
It was in there when
You strapped it in.
Because they put it in there for weight.
Didn't get much weight in the swag, would it?
Well,
No,
who
it's
took it
got a bar.
out? Someone taken it out.
No, it was in there when I drove it earlier. Well, it looks like something's
Started
fallen out,
there,
but all the
didn't
straps loose.
We put it there
Yeah,
for
no, it
lunch.
was in there. It was in there with it. We put it in there
I
last
didn't
time.
see it go in. I thought last time I saw it was in the bar.
Well, it's not there now.
Yeah, we put it in lunchtime.
Might be up the side of the hill somewhere. I think while we're having a beer, you're going to be going to do some driving, so.
What are we going to do? Shall we get his swag out of the truck now or what?
No, that's a real good one.
Hey, how'd you work that? We all got this stuff in the blue can and you've got a harn.
It's a light, mate. I figure I got a long drive ahead of me.
You have got a long time ahead of you.
No.
Can't see anything that looks like a big grey swag in here.
It's not in there. It's not in there.
Did you check the other one over there? You checked the one out over there?
Well, it saves me the drive. I'll go and get my beer now. This'll fix low mount.
Well, that was another great day, Ruthie. Good night, mate.
Yeah, good night, Glenn. Good on you, mate. Good night, Mark.
Night, John.
Good night, Grimbo.
Good night, Pete.
Good night, Desley.
Right, John.
Good night, John.
Good night all.
Someone pass us another beer, please.
Looking forward to another big day, Matt.
Mate, I am. I'm looking forward to that coffee at the Prairie Hotel in Parachilla.
Yeah, that'd be good stuff, won't
Best
it?
coffee around, mate.
Looking forward to jumping in this Nissan again. It went quite well yesterday. Actually, Matty, you got long legs. You should have a drive of this
Yeah,
one.
mate, love to. Love to.
Cheers.
What the? Oi, get back here, you cheeky little pig!
Travelling anywhere in the outback means preparation and packing the right stuff to get you out of trouble. Even though we're travelling in new trucks, we're not taking any risks. We've got tools, spares, plenty of water, a medical kit and even a seat or three to make the beer drinking easier at the end of the day. Boy, these drawer systems get you organised, don't they? Departing Willow Springs, we head to William Creek, stopping at Perilchina and Maree along the way. It's a 500 kilometre leg that gets us into the dirt and corrugations of the Udnadatta track. Truth. 8 new utes driving into Blinman. They're going to think we stole them. Parachilna, with a population of about a six-pack, is home to the Prairie Hotel and the best coffee in the outback. I never thought anyone would be sipping latte out here. After a few coffees each, we were back on the track, but running behind time, so it was foot to the floor for a while to make it up. But a bit of speed is just the ticket for sorting out the suspension and steering differences between our 6 utes. They're all good, but there's differences that are becoming more apparent. Yeah, that's the open cut, the Lee Creek open cut coal field on the right. It's brown coal, and I think it's the largest in the world, I'm not sure. I know it was the largest in the world when I was a lad up here, that's for sure. The trains are fantastic out of here, magnificent. This went for miles.
Most of the things we have to do.
Maree used to be the kick-off point for the real outback and the start of the Birdsville track. Here's the old mail truck that used to haul supplies and post to all the stations along the route. Often the only contact people north of here had with civilisation. And of course, it's a four-wheel drive blitz. Geez, they're ugly up here too, eh? Just like home, everyone's wearing a bag on their head.
You want to do the Mazda? 30 front, 28 rear.
Okay, what's that, Terry's recommendation?
Yeah, it's what Terry reckons, mate.
All right,
And,
here we come, that's for the dirt?
Yep, dirt, 30, 28.
Not low range, just normal dirt.
Normal dirt.
Okay, cool.
I'll do 28, 28 on the Hilux. It's bloody fast.
We're going to 130 per sign in the front of this and 28 in the rear for the dirt stuff. Mainly high speed, that's why we're not going so low. We're going to do the Navara. We're going to 28 and 28 for the dirt.
Yeah, I was just, yeah, good. Here's a sign for all those Japanese tourists who think there's a spa and sauna about 5 minutes down the road. Seriously, if you see a warning sign in the outback, stop and think about it. Make sure you and your vehicle are ready. Recoveries are expensive up here. We're on day 3 now, and we're on the Udnadatta track. Yesterday at Skytrek was terrific for the bit of low range stuff and whatnot. We really started to get to know these vehicles better. up here on the Editor track. It's just been graded fairly recently, I'd say. It's nice and smooth. The corrugations aren't a drama at all. You could whistle along here fairly well and truly. I'm in the Nissan at the moment. I don't know how I feel about the Nissan. I was really looking forward to it, but the smaller motor, even though it's got more power on paper, it sort of misses out a bit on low down pull, you know. I stalled it a couple of times yesterday, and that was when the other guys were idling through. Other things, well, I'm surprised at the difference between the Ford and the Mazda. A lot of the guys have been commenting on that. You know, the Ford's got softer suspension, the Mazda's probably sportier in the way it corners. Coming out of the same factory, the basic truck anyway, you wouldn't expect that many differences, but there are quite a few, let's say more than tuning differences involved in the two, which that's quite interesting. The Hilux, well, it's the most expensive truck by $5,000. It's got that typically Toyota pretty solid feel. It's got to be a good thing, but you know, I don't know, it's not doing it for me, to be honest, and I think some of the other guys are feeling the same way. Possibly that's because of the Triton. A bit of a surprise there with the Triton. We've all known the Pajero's a really good thing. This latest Triton truck, wow, it's right up there. I'm really surprised. I can't say I like the look of it. I'm not too sure about that. Still looks like two buckets stacked on top of each other to me. But by crikey, doesn't it go? And it's got nice suspension. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It really has. And I don't know. The field is pretty tight at the moment. What else? Gee, I know the guys are going to be feeling the same, because at the end of the day, what we've got here are 6 trucks that are all turbo diesels, all very, very similar, all basically, you know, top of the line Japanese work utes. And we're not quite splitting hairs, but we're getting pretty close. I'm glad we've got another 3 or 4 days of mixed terrain to sort them out. Lake Air, a dirty great lump of salt for as far as the eye can see. Mel Campbell might have set a few speed records out here in the Bluebird 50 years ago, but don't go driving on it, especially after the rain. Salt lakes eat cars quicker than Tassie beaches.
These rough outback roads in South Australia are fantastic for showing up the differences in suspensions, steering systems and brakes, and each manufacturer has their own little way in which they set up a braking system or a steering system and the suspension to give each vehicle that certain feel that they're trying to achieve. One of the big differences I notice in each of these vehicles is the way they're put together. Some of them, like the Holden and the Hilux, are quite well assembled and feel very, very sturdy on these rougher roads, which we're experiencing right now. Sorry about these corrugations. The Navara has slipped in my books a little in that it's not put together as well as it could be. The dash, the assembly of the plastic inside the vehicle, it just doesn't give you that strong, robust feeling when you hit washouts quickly. However, there's 4 days to go, and I think it's a little bit early to call where we're at, because ahead of us we've got sand. We might try and find a bit of mud, some corrugations, some bull dust, some of the fun stuff that's going to sort the men from the boys as far as the 2007 Ute of the Year goes.
Beautiful long roads, dust billowing out of the cars, we're all catching up to each other here. Check all this out. How good is that? Storms in the background. I think we're going to get a bit of rain pretty soon. This will be really interesting if we start slipping and sliding all over the place.
The only way to test 6 vehicles thoroughly is to have regular driver swaps, so everybody gets a taste of all the vehicles on different terrain.
Hey up, this is right, bloody champion this is.
You can tell they already sent all the good ones out here on ships years ago.
How good was that, Glenn? We're clicking along at 100 k's an hour. $2,000 I was just doing in the Mazda. It's quiet, it's comfortable, you can talk to each other. Just utes have come so far in the last couple of years.
They're not agricultural work vehicles anymore, are they, mate? They pull the speed you want us to pull out here, they feel nice to ride in, they steer, they stop. They're like a family wagon crossed with something you can use for work and play.
go. The test has been a bit of an eye-opener in regards to a lot of these vehicles. We've had a real good test of their capabilities across a wide range of terrain so far. We've still got a good test of the four-wheel drive abilities coming up, which should be interesting because so far some of the vehicles are starting to sort of nose ahead in the pack, but I reckon with this four-wheel drive component coming up, it should even things out, and I reckon it's going to make a fairly clear decision of which one's going to come out on top.
The William Creek Hotel is a low-roofed oasis in the middle of the outback, and at the end of the day's driving it was great to sink a few cold beers and talk over the day's testing. The pub itself was established in 1887 and has been servicing weary travellers ever since. If you take a look at the walls, you'll notice that people came here from all over the world. That's how good the beer is. Righto, now where's that busload of Swedish backpackers they mentioned back in Maree? But with a big drive ahead, we're in for an early night. From William Creek, it's a 400-kilometre run through the arid Aussie outback to end the day with a soothing swim at Dalhousie Springs. But we found a great spot to play just outside William Creek, where we could really put these utes through some different terrain again.
In this soft sand country, ground clearance, suspension and tractable power can be tested to the max, but boy don't the ARB vehicles show up the stockers by comparison. Here's a great way to illustrate the difference between the stockers and the modified aftermarket vehicles. Just check out the improved approach angle of the ARB trucks. They do it so much more easily than the stockers ever could. There's nothing like a bit of a lift and some locking diffs to make tough stuff look easy. For workhorses with leaf rear springs, these utes articulate pretty well. Standard limit slip diffs are good for gravel roads, but as soon as a wheel comes off the ground, you've got to have a locker.
After a hard morning's testing, we took time out at Nilpena Station to fuel up the testers. Can't expect the lads to live on sheer excitement for too long, can we? I'm talking with Trevor Williams here at Nilpena Station on our way to Udnadatta, about halfway up the track. And Trevor, you're a bit of a Toyota bloke, aren't you?
Yeah, we like Toyota. We've got on all our properties with tray tops, and we get a good run. They're reliable, good parts back up.
Yeah.
And we like running with them.
Yeah, yeah. You've had a few others over the years, though, haven't you? Get some. You know.
Oh yeah, we've had a few. Nissans earlier, but we soon got away from them pretty quick.
Didn't have much luck with the Nissans?
No, you only buy one.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And at the moment, You've got the new Hilux here.
Yeah. Well, that's just for our own personal car. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad car, but no. Wasn't real keen on the tyres. Tyres a bit too small.
The standard tyres.
Yeah, they need a bit more of a bigger tyre for more clearance on these roads up here.
I noticed you haven't got the standard tyres on this anyway, even though they're little. You didn't even get out of the showroom.
Yeah, well, before I took it out of the showroom, I got a guide who fitted some Cooper tyres on them.
Yeah.
Because the ones that were on it were a waste of time.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah, for these conditions. Because what else would you say to people? You know, people who want to drive these sort of tracks, like the Oodnadatta track. I mean, you've obviously added a few things to yours here. What do they need really for these sort of conditions?
Oh, you don't need a new car, like as long as you've got a good, reliable car that's well maintained, bit of clearance and good tyres. And the main thing is having a good radiator. It's no good heading out if you've got a motor that's boiling and all that. That's basically the main thing.
Yeah. This Nissan thing, it's interesting. You know, we were talking about that before. But I hear tell one of your brothers on one of the other stations, Tony, is it? He's got a Nissan, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got a Nissan wagon. He's had a good run out of it, but he's happy with it. But you know, everyone for their own thing.
Yeah, Toyotas work here for you, don't they?
Yeah, I had an 80, got one in '84, a brand new wagon, and I done 520,000 without touching the motor. So why change?
That'd do it to you every time, wouldn't it? What about your other brother Wayne up at Hamilton Station, where we're heading? He's
yeah, he's just bought one of the new Mitsubishi, Mazda dual cabs.
Oh yeah.
And he's only had that a couple of weeks, so he seems happy with that.
Have you had a look at it yourself?
I've seen it, yeah.
What do you think of it?
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. Just.
But you know, I'm happy with the one I've got.
Yeah. I noticed Trevor had screwed some rubber flaps up under his own Hilux to protect the fuel tank and rear suspension from rocks. I guess anyone travelling these corrugated tracks regularly would consider that sort of stuff cheap insurance. A constant spray of stones can do an awful lot of damage to a standard truck. Another reason to jack them up, eh? They called the railway to Alice Springs the Ghan, after the Afghan camel drivers who operated the first regular transport up here. There's plenty of Ghan relics left, including this steel bridge, the longest on the track and still in good condition. But I guess rust isn't such a problem this far from the beach. Along the way we pay a visit to the iconic Pink Roadhouse in Oodnadatta, which the film Priscilla, Queen of the Desert made pretty famous. Good place to leave your handbags in the cars, guys. From Oodnadatta we've got to run across to Dalhousie Springs, which is a bit of a haul with the sun sinking fast. Oh well, at least we'll get to test the lights.
Corrugation's in there.
Corrugations loosen bolts and break parts, and they're as bad as they get around here, but we didn't have a single failure due to metal fatigue or vibration, proving that the current crop of utes are well built, if nothing else.
Glenn, you're behind me, aren't you?
Yeah, John?
Mate, there's a fork in the road. The main track goes to the left. That's towards Marlborough. We're turning right. I'm turning right. I think it'll say Dalhousie on it somewhere, and it'll say Hamilton, Homestead, etc.
Okay, mate, I think I'm coming up to it now.
I'm out front because I know where we're going, but without good UHF radios, we'd find it hard to keep up.
I love this outback touring driving. There's nothing around for miles. As far as you can see, there's just horizon, grass, sand, dirt. It's one of my favourite forms of driving, and actually I guess I said that in Tasmania when I said how much I love mud driving, Fraser when I said how much I love sand driving, but I genuinely do love this outback touring. The sun's setting here, we've got to keep our wits about us because there's roos and emus around. It's just fantastic. You know, you're so far away from the city and there's not a worry on your mind. Fantastic. Yeah, John.
Mate, the second group that you know is named our flyover. There's a mob of cattle about half a kilometre, straight after that group. Just watch out for it, mate.
Okay, this is where it starts to get fun, mate. You've got to keep your wits about you.
Standard lights are good for about 60 k's an hour at most. This is where good driving lights make all the difference, letting you know what's down the track instead of just hitting it.
Copy, Glenn?
Yeah, John.
About 4 or 5 k's after that, the second healthy side.
It was late when we got to the springs, too late to see much, but the thought of a hot swim in the morning was good stuff to go to sleep on.
This is magic. Dalhousie Springs. It's 40 degrees here in the water, and it's a bit of an escape, believe it or not, from the temperature outside. It's fairly hot. There's a heap of flies. Adds a bit of spice to the whole trip, doesn't it, guys? It makes you know you're away from the big city.
It sure does. I think I might stay here for a couple of hours. This is great.
A couple of days, a couple of hours. Problem is, there's plenty of testing to do yet, guys, so...
Oh, we'll get to that.
Give it time.
Next morning, some of us got up early enough to see the sunrise. After a morning swim, it's back on the road for a dusty and bumpy 360-kilometre drive to the spectacular Chambers Pillar. We make a quick stop at Mount Dare before crossing the border into the Northern Territory. We just pulled up for morning spoko and JJ noticed some oil on the back wheel of the Navara. So nice clean oil too. At first we thought it was a brake line or something, but this is what it is. The whole rear protrusion on the transfer case where the drain plug goes, it sort of sticks out about an inch or so, has just snapped right off. And the only way that could have happened is one of these big goolies, I guess, one of these big rocks around here has bounced back and powered straight up. There's no scarring or anything else around here. We've only been going on, you know, just the normal old rocky roads this morning. 1 in a million chance of something like that happening. Bit of a disaster, obviously. It's being at the drain plug end of the transfer. It's dropped all the oil straight away. So we'll get the Leatherman out and carve a piece of wood up, block this up. We can get at the filler plug so we can get some oil in there. At the end of the day, it's just a gearbox, you know. It's just got some gears floating around. As long as we can keep some oil in there, we've got a chance of getting it out of here without too much damage. Really shows the need for some sort of protection plate under here, doesn't it? You know. All right, let's see what we can do. Boy, this new Leatherman proved its worth knocking up a plug. Makes me glad I subscribed to 4 Wheel Drive Monthly. Incidents like this test out a bloke's ability to think laterally, because the alternative is a damned long walk.
Well, I've sorted it best as we can, but I'm interested to know who was driving it when this happened. Not that it was their fault or anything.
Wasn't me, Roothy. I didn't do it.
Nothing's as hard on suspensions as these corrugations and stony tracks. The Triton shock absorbers are about the smallest I've ever seen. Fortunately, there's good aftermarket suspension out there to fix this problem. As we travelled north to Alice, we had to refill the utes several times, which gave us plenty of opportunity to log the fuel consumption of our test vehicles under the whole range of different driving conditions. Mount Dare's very four-wheel drive friendly and a great place for a cold drink too. Wish we had more time here. From Mount Dare to the Territory border isn't far.
A really interesting day today. We've come from Dalhousie Springs across some of the roughest roads that Mount Dare's seen in the last number of years. Boulders like house bricks being thrown up by cars in front. Really rough conditions, lots of corrugations and plenty of testing conditions for the suspensions of all these utes. One of the things that has been very, very impressive on this test though is the Cooper ST tyres we've had on these. They've provided more grip than I could have imagined under brakes, especially when you need it at night when there's roos and emus darting across in front of us in the dark. They're fantastic as far as their sidewall grip, their side traction goes. They've got the side lugs that help you when they help prevent sliding too much on these roads on some of these faster, slippery corners, which vary from sand like we're in right now, and you can see we're bouncing around a fair bit, to some of the shalier, sharper, rocky gravel roads, and not one puncture to date. Fingers crossed.
Sounds like JJ's done a tyre. He's a couple of k's the other side of Bundoona, so we're going to run back. Yeah, I don't know what you've got in that truck, but just in case, if you don't mind.
It sounded like it hit the spring thing, but she must have cut the inside of the tyre.
It's got a big tear in the sidewall.
Has it? There we go.
John Jane.
What's that?
most of them. Big hole coming up. Big hole.
Here. This trip hasn't just been one hell of a test for the utes, it's also been really, really hard on tyres. And to their credit, these Cooper STs haven't had any problems. They've dealt with all the rocks that we've been able to throw at them. A lot of really sharp rocks, large rocks, no matter what, they've stood up to it all. But unfortunately today we found one thing that I haven't met a tyre yet that can withstand it. These steel railway spikes that are very commonly found on this old Garden Railway. And unfortunately, JJ's just driven over one and it's gone right through the sidewall of this tyre here. It's made a big tear, as you can see. Time to change it, hey?
In the outback, you just never know what's going to happen next. On the road again, after fixing JJ's flat, all thoughts turn to the constant perils of travelling in the outback. Even with good aftermarket rubber and a couple of spares for each truck, there's nothing to say we won't pick up more spikes like that last one any second. That's what you get when you travel down an old railway line. They use this stretch of the old Garn to run the Fink River Desert Race, so what better place to really test these utes? But the tougher it is, the more chance there is of breaking something.
And I break before. What's that?
Egg white.
Lowmounts punch the protective plate through the radiator bottom tank. Seeing as it's made out of plastic, I'm going to weld it up using a 12-volt soldering iron and some zip ties for filler.
This is the result of rushing to meet deadlines.
Yes. Sorry, but I reckon what's good is sort of.
Have you got a daylight torch?
What's your... Right. Right, I'll just put the plug in, we'll fill it up and see what happens.
Let's give it a go.
No worries.
Did you put the plug in?
Yeah, I just had to check. Here's the level. Cannon's making ringy noises from behind. Can you hear that? Oh, gee. Pardon me. It's one repair after another with these new cars.
After the dramas of the day, rolling out our swags at Chambers Pillar was a real pleasure. Desley had travelled ahead again and had dinner ready, so all was well in our bush camp that night. Nothing but centipedes and snores. In all this flat country, Chambers sticks out like a sore thumb. It's been a landmark since the earliest days of European exploration. In the centre country here, you could see it out the Garn windows, so plenty of travellers have shared the experience of this remarkable sandstone pillar. The drive from Chambers Pillar to Alice Springs is an easy 170 kilometres, although it kicks off with some low-range work on the track out of Chambers. The scenery turns on rich reds and greens as you get closer to the centre, but it's a long way between fuel stops out here and the standard utes are getting low on fuel. A nice big long-range tank would be lovely for peace of mind about now.
Hey guys, we'll just do a quick fuel check before we go too much further. We've got about 120 k's to go to get back into Alice Springs. The truck I'm in's got roughly a quarter of a tank. You guys let me know what you've all got on board.
Yeah, Roothy in the Mazda, a bit over a quarter of a tank, Mark.
Yeah, Mark, Nick in the Nissan and a bit over a quarter of a tank as well.
Got half a tank in the Hilux, mate. I've spent a lot of time in each of these utes this week, and I'm starting to believe, or maybe wish, that this Hilux was mine. Fortunately, I've spent a lot of time behind the wheel with this Hilux in standard format without the Steinbauer power-up module, and it's a peppy little performer, but this is the first decent drive I've had in it with the module in it, and JJ wasn't lying, it really works. Most noticeably, in this high-range four-wheel drive stuff on the gravel, I've noticed that it pulls really hard from 2,000 to about 3,500 RPM, a big noticeable difference over previously. And another interesting little bit off-road, we just came up some really steep rocky inclines in low range then, and I had it in first gear, second gear, and at times it was labouring down at about 900, 800 RPM, and it refused to stall when previously I know this thing would have stalled a couple of days before without the power-up module in it. So it really does work. We haven't tested it for economy yet, but I can see that this would definitely be a really big benefit to people towing, caravans, boats or whatever, but also especially to us tourers and four-wheel drivers, whether it's for long outback travel or off-road, low-range play. It's definitely a big benefit.
Maryvale Station is our last fuel stop for this trip, and at $1.75 a litre, our last chance to make some Arab sheik a zillionaire. Even at this late stage, and with so much terrain covered, there's still a few things missing to make a complete evaluation. Water would be nice, and the clouds are there, but they're not dumping on us, not yet anyway.
Oh, I try not to look so excited.
Whoops, spoke too soon. Look at this, mud at last. That scud really dropped some rain on the track, and now we've got an opportunity to test these utes in the mud too.
No worries, guys. All good. Thanks again.
Yeah, you're a great bunch of guys. It's been bloody good. Hard, but good. Thanks, fellas.
It's not often you see the Todd flowing, and we figure we're pretty lucky that the worst dirt got washed off before we even got to the car wash. We needed them clean before putting them on the hoist to survey the damage. For us, this is the critical part of the testing process. Having proved they can do it, we're keen to see at what cost. It gives us a chance to see how well design theory works in practice too.
On this ute test so far, we've told you what these utes feel like to ride in, what they steer like, what we like and dislike about different aspects of them, from the way they brake and stop, the way they handle load in the back. But now let's get to the fun part, the nitty gritty. Let's look at why they do what they do.
There's no denying we tested these utes really, really hard. We put them through some really bad roads, but nothing that other vehicle owners wouldn't necessarily do to these vehicles at some stage in their life. One of the things that really, really makes me angry, and I don't understand, well, I think I do understand, it all comes down to dollars and cents, but why can't manufacturers like Nissan, in the case of this Navara, put a bloody sump guard underneath vital things like the sump and the transfer case, both of which on this trip were severely damaged, all because there was no decent protection underneath it. Most of the other vehicles have got substantial guards underneath them. They cost a hell of a lot less than this Nissan, and I don't really want to have to walk home from the middle of the inner Minka just because I put a rock through the sump because there was nothing protecting it. It's bloody stupid.
Ford Ranger,
Triton,
Hilux,
Mazda. Probably due to the fact that it seems to be a pretty well balanced package. Great gearbox, good engine, suspension seems to work well with the combination, and just a lot of fun to drive.
Well, I don't know, I had my gear in the Ford all week and, you know, it's a bit of a pick at the start and I definitely like it very much, and the Mazda. That Triton, every time I got in that I really had a ball, so I've got to say Triton, I think, pretty much, yeah.
Hilux, because it's just been the whole package, it stayed together, it stayed consistent throughout the whole trip. A lot of the other cars have deteriorated, rattles, squeaks, that sort of stuff.
I chose the Mazda BT50, it's got the power, the handling that tops all the others. A few dollars of aftermarket gear would bring it up equal to some of the other vehicles to set up as a touring vehicle.
The Mazda was the best all-rounder. It had the best engine, best brakes. It gave a solid feel through the suspension, and I couldn't really fault it. And when you think about the price, it's just the best package out of all six of them.
So the winner of the 2007 Ute of the Year is the Mazda BT50. It's been a harsh and gruelling test, certainly the toughest Ute of the Year test we've ever done, which means it'll be way tougher than anything anyone else has ever done. But in the real world, that's the only way to play, because we know our readers like to travel the outback as much as we do. We hope you've learned something from watching this test, and it's been a real joy having you along. We might have worked out which of the current crop of utes is worth your money, but more than anything, we've proven yet again the sheer value of good aftermarket equipment. These manufacturers build good vehicles, but it takes some good Aussie product to get the most out of them. 4-Wheel Drive Monthly.
Rid of the wiggles. What is it? The car key wiggle.
Australia really is the greatest place on earth, and I reckon the outback is the heart and soul of our country. There's nothing I love better than getting in Milo and driving off into the vast peace and quiet that you only get when you're right out in the bush. And the best thing is, it's just down the end of your street too. So come on, this is where you'll feel the true heartbeat of Australia. Come out here and have a look.